You want to know about Fletcher Henderson? Let's tell you about it. First thing is that the Fletcher Henderson family is an incredible insight into the African American experience from freedom really till the contemporary civil rights era. Fletcher Henderson Sr., that's the father, was 6 years old when he was freed by General Sherman in the legendary March to the Sea. And Fletcher Henderson Sr., the father, takes advantage of this window of opportunity that African Americans had during Reconstruction shortly thereafter, which was ended with the advent of segregation. And that really sets the table for the life that Fletcher Henderson, or Fletcher Henderson, the musician, Fletcher Henderson Jr. would have. Because there weren't the opportunities in the 1890s and 1980s and 19-teens and 1920s for this member of the younger generation that the father had had. He'd become really the head of education in his county and eventually a head of black education when segregation happened. But the Fletcher Henderson family was well-to-do, and Fletcher Henderson Jr., the pianist, our musician, he's given really a Renaissance education in a upwardly mobile, upper-middle-class home. He was athletically successful, he was academically successful, and he really had a career goal that was either too late or too early. He wanted to be a chemistry professor at a college. And he went away to New York City to go to graduate school at Columbia University. And Daddy didn't leave him enough money to work out a summer in the Big Apple. It would have been enough in Comfort, Georgia, but it wasn't enough pin money to make it to September. So Fletcher Henderson, our Fletcher Henderson, who played a little bit of piano, started taking some spot work. And he found, hey, this is kind of lucrative. This is a lot of fun. I'm never going to make it in chemistry anyway. I'm black, but people hire me to play music. And Fletcher Henderson became arguably the most important jazz musician in New York City, particularly in the endeavor to bring African Americans playing jazz to the Great White Way, which is both literal and figurative. I mean downtown Manhattan and Broadway. And Henderson became the person selected to run a big band, a jazz-age big band, at the prestigious Roseland Ballroom. And he had a colleague named Don Redman, and largely on Redman's recommendations, Henderson assembled the defining big band of early jazz. It had Louis Armstrong in it. And they were roaring at the Roseland Ballroom, making successful records. They did some touring. And Fletcher Henderson became synonymous with the big band scene of the 1920s. And that would be enough, except things changed. And one of the things changed is that Don Redman left him to become Don Redman, basically, to his own career. And Fletcher Henderson started sorting through orchestral jazz far differently than Redman did, and very effectively, independent of what anybody else had done. He created a number of definitive breakthroughs in ensemble devices of the orchestra, and in effect created the swing era, ending up his band's existence, the original Fletcher Henderson Orchestra's existence. It went broke because of the Great Depression, but musically it was always a triumph. With 3 trumpets, 2 trombones, 4 saxophones, please note it's 2 altos and 2 tenors, and the full rhythm section, which in those days included acoustic guitar, string bass, drums, and piano. And even though the band went broke, there's someone who wasn't going broke who knew about it. It was Benny Goodman. And he hired Fletcher Henderson to be the staff arranger for the Goodman operation, which emulated both the music but also the instrumentation of the just deceased Fletcher Henderson Orchestra. And as you know, Benny Goodman becomes the king of swing, the standout figure of American pop music for a generation, and of course the kingpin and indeed king of swing for the swing era big bands. It also reactivated Fletcher Henderson's career. He started a new big band and moved to Chicago. He'd been based in New York all along. And that band had a hit record, Henderson's biggest hit, number 9 on the charts, Christopher Columbus. You can take it to the bank if it's 1936. And Henderson's band had about a 4-year existence and tended to founder, again for economic reasons, as the 1940s began. Henderson continued to take out new big bands and had only changed over to a sextet, his final orchestra, in late 1950, at the end of the swing era, when the big bands, all of the big bands, not just Henderson's big bands, had gone broke. And Fletcher Henderson started a success. It was a success. It's 6 pieces. He started a group that had a big-time gig at the Cafe Society, and they were on the air every night. And then he had a stroke in late December of 1950, and he really never recovered from it and died 2 years later. He was only 55. I'm just going to add one more thing to it. First, some summary of the big picture. Fletcher Henderson is the most essential figure to big band jazz that there is. How big a picture you want, that's pretty big. And he was a success with the smaller orchestras of the jazz age, and he is a creator of the primary breakthrough big band of the swing era, these larger ensembles with 3 horn sections. He is the power behind the throne of Benny Goodman's Kingdom of Swing, and he is one of the standout thinkers of orchestral music of the 20th century.